So when we talk about propaganda, we got to recognize something, that most of the misinformation you get comes to you from 5 companies: AOL, Time Warner, and Walt Disney, Bertelsmann, Viacom, and Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. 5 families control all information. All your music, all your movies, all your DVDs, all your TV shows, all your empires and scandals, and all of that come from 5 groups. The 5 families, baby. That's why all the news is the same. It's all the same. And the leaders of those 5 families all sit at the table of the Bilderberger family. The Bilderberg is the Council of 300. It's the organization of the white supremacist power structure. The 300 most important white men and women sit around that table, and they dictate destiny for the world. And they're going to do that till black folks stand up and decide to dictate destiny for ourselves. Talk about a free press. Ain't no such thing as a free press. You know what they do to reporters who tell the truth? Your ass end up dead. Anybody saw the movie Kill the Messenger, came out last month? About the white reporter from the San Jose Times who uncovered the fact that the CIA was selling crack in the black community? Gary Webb. And they blew his damn brains out. Ain't no damn free press. If they ever catch you telling the truth about something white folks doing, you are out of here. I'm working on a newspaper too, the Umar Johnson newspaper. And we're going to put out, I'm going to have the exposed white supremacy page. Any type of racism that you go through, you want to send it to me, I'm going to put it right in that paper. You went into the supermarket and they followed your ass around the whole time you were shopping, they getting exposed. $500 billion is what they spend on mind control. Can anybody tell me why the United States government spends $500 billion on media? You know why they spend $500 billion on media? Because white folk are a minority in the world, and the best way you can control the majority being a minority is you got to control the way they think, and that's the purpose of media. You stop people from going to war. Anybody ever heard of the Rockefeller Board of Education? Did y'all know the Rockefellers had their own Board of Education? Oh yes. Why would a family that's into global investment in oil start a school board when they ain't got no damn schools? Because the Rockefellers said, if we want to control the world, we got to control the textbooks that the schools use. We have to make sure we know what they teaching the children, or otherwise they might teach the children to take our power. Why do you think your children don't get classes on economics, classes on real estate, classes on multinational investment? It's set up like that you don't get taught big business in school. This is how they set it up. You get taught how to work for white folks. And that's why the schools are closing down now. Because they don't need black workers no more. Don't y'all got schools closing down around here? Oh yeah, they shutting public schools down, baby. Ain't gonna be no public education in the next 50 years because they don't need no black workers in the next 50 years. They got the Mexicans here to do that. You're done. If you don't create an economy for yourself, you will die. You can pray all you want, march all you want, vote all you want. America no longer needs the black man's labor. America no longer needs the black woman's labor. That's why you can go to college and still not get no job, because they don't need you. This is the reality. Public schools were started to teach you how to read, how to write, and how to count so you can go work for Chevy. Go work for Walmart. Go work for McDonald's. Go work for the factory. But they done sent all those factories to second and third world nations, and the ones that's still here to give them to the Mexicans and Latinos. You ain't got no damn job. So what is the purpose of public school now? The purpose of public school now is to prepare black girls for poverty and black boys for jail. The new racism is to act like there is no racism. Intelligence testing. William Stern, a German Jew who was ultimately kicked out by Adolf Hitler, but he worked with Adolf Hitler for a while, and it was him who gave Adolf Hitler the science of intelligence testing that he made up to justify the extermination of European Jews. I don't know if y'all know this, but when they did the research on the Nazi exterminations, the Holocaust, most of the Jews they killed had an IQ test in their folder. They used the IQ test to justify extermination, just like the United States used the IQ test to justify sterilization of black folks. Half the states in this country did not let you have children or get married if your IQ score was below a certain point. America didn't copy Hitler. Hitler copied America. The whole Nazi science program was born right here. And Hitler was financed from Wall Street by European Jews. Why is that interesting? Because the first thing white folk want to tell black folk, black people sold you into slavery. Don't get mad at us because it was your own people who sold you. Oh, really? Why I ain't heard nobody tell the white Jew man yet that it was your own people who financed your Holocaust, so stop complaining about it. Black people need to get over slavery. Why y'all keep talking about slavery? Oh, really? Ain't nobody told the Jews that. They come out with a Holocaust movie every month. Look at the double standard. I didn't participate in your Holocaust, European Jew, but you damn sure participated in mine. You was the primary financier of most of the slave ships. You was the primary financier of most of the insurance companies that insured my body on arrival. But I helped you, European Jew. In World War II, it was a group of black soldiers known as the Liberators who went into the heart of Berlin and freed the European Jews from the worst concentration camps. I helped y'all. You hurt us. Don't ask me to cry no damn tears for you. Because you own the media companies that's putting out negative images of black men. You own the record companies that's putting out negative images of black folk. You own the magazines and the newspapers. Don't you dare say I gotta cry a tear for you. I ain't got no tears for nobody but black folk. And I don't hate nobody else either. But my love is for mines. My love is for mines. I'm unapologetically African. And I'm gonna die that. I'm gonna die that. And you better die that too. The time has come for us to stop feeling insecure about being proud of who we are. The Latino loves being Latino and don't speak for nobody but the Latino. The Chinese love being Chinese and they don't speak for nobody but the Chinese. The Arab loves being Arabian and he don't speak for nobody but the Arab. It's time for the black man to love being a black man and don't speak for nobody but ourselves. What Marcus Garvey said? The most prominent prophet and king of Pan-Africanism, provisional president of Africa, the only black man to organize more than 1 million people, 15 million to be exact, the man who laid down the plan for every organization to come after me. I don't care what group you belong to, they copied Garvey, every last one. Garvey said if the black man is not careful, if the black man is not careful, he will drink in all the poison of Western civilization and die from the effects of it. Ain't that us? We drink it like hell, ain't we? Drink it.
They dress and they talk very educated, so you look at them and they sound like they're intelligent and they can actually take stuff that's actually gutter, subculture stuff, pornography, and just celebrate it right in front of the world. And that's why, because they rule it, that sexual perverseness, that we saw the real depth of it, but we see the things, the pornography being big now, all this things that we see on television, the dressing clothes that they make for females that you can't, if a woman wants to wear something that covers herself, she can't even find stockings these days. The little skinny pants for boys, just everything you see in a society that's going towards sexually perverse things, these individuals are in control of. And they're making it, they're dragging the entire society down sexually with this madness. Now, we're going to begin to really get into this discussion because we got to understand, now that we understand their mentality, what does that have to do with entertainment? I want you to listen very carefully because this is one of the most important things you're ever going to hear about entertainment. The birth of entertainment began with the small hat named Thomas Dartmouth Rice in 1828. The birth of entertainment began with a small hat named Thomas Dartmouth Rice in 1828. What happened? Let me give you a picture, draw this picture so that it becomes very easy to understand. Because of the Atlantic slave trade where African people were holistically sold into slavery in the Western Hemisphere. The small hats became the richest interest group of individuals on this planet. Columbus was a small hat. The major finances of the Atlantic slave trade were small hats. The individuals, the two largest slave ports in America were New York, New Amsterdam, New York, New York, and South Carolina. Both of these two states, even to this day, are run by white so-called Jews, by small hats. The entire enslavement of African people, everything from the insurance companies to the ships to the largest slave plantations to some of the major, our brother Hakeem Amin informed us the other night that 3 of the major generals fighting to keep the Confederacy and keep black people enslaved were who? Small hats. In other words, the reason that they got richer than anybody on this planet was the exploitation of African people. The Atlantic slave trade, very simply, was started and promoted and controlled by small hats. They became the richest individuals in the world. So after 1804, when the Haitian Revolution was won by Haitian brothers and sisters, and they declared their freedom, it began to become obvious, and with Europeans and America talking about wanting to industrialize in this country, that the end of slavery would be coming. This frightened small hats to death. Why? Slavery had done something for small hats in the Western Hemisphere that they had never had in the history of the world. When they were in Europe, it was small hats and other white folks. When other white folks found out how small hats felt about them, they started killing them. Through the slave trade, they were not only able to make themselves filthy rich, they were able to put another group in between them and white folks, us. So they can get white folks, they enslave, they make white folks plantation owners and get involved in making chains to enslave us. Now the attention of white folks is no longer on small hats. Their attention is on enslaving us. And while they're doing that, the small hats are taking over their country, dominating every industry. They're taking total control of what's happening. If slavery ended in America, that would mean that black people would leave this country. And it would only be small hats and Anglo-Saxons. They would see that they had taken over there and they controlled their country. And just like Hitler and Nazi Germany, they would get slaughtered. So they said, slavery is going to end soon. What are we going to do? And in 1828, Thomas Dartmouth Rice saw a crippled black man who was enslaved, and he was doing the dance he did. He took the man's clothes, went out, got large white audiences around, and began to accept money and began to imitate this black man. And they started paying him to do it, and it became so popular he would take black cork and paint his face black. I want you to say, this is where entertainment begins in this country. And he paints his face black in his body so that he's imitating the black man. For what purpose? Because he doesn't want slavery to end, because that's how small hats have become rich, through the system of exploitation of African people. And so, if they can't physically enslave us, then they need to put the image out about black people that we're monsters and we're animals to justify our continued exploitation. And this is the beginning of the transference from physical enslavement, where they make millions of dollars off of us out there physically doing their work for them, to a new industry that is still based on the exploitation of African people. However, as opposed to physical exploitation, now it's mental exploitation. Taking the image of our people and making it look like we deserve to be enslaved. We deserve to be a bunch of slaves. We deserve to be mistreated. You can't let these people out. If they do get free, we're going to keep the attention on the black people so that we can do what we want in this society, and we can make millions of dollars entertaining white folks who come out and give us, remember the trickster, gives us their money so that we can act in a manner that pretending like we're acting like black people, so that the whites then believe that black people want to be enslaved. Therefore, it's right to enslave and mistreat us to continue this thing going so that they can stay rich.
The Happy Sambo began his stage life in the late 1820s when a man named T.D. Rice brought a new sensation to American theater. Rice was known as an Ethiopian delineator, a white comedian who performed in blackface. The name of his routine would later become the symbol of segregation in the South.
The Jim Crow was a dance that started on the plantations as a result of dancing being outlawed in 1690. Dancing was said to be crossing your feet by the church. And so the slaves created a way of shuffling and sliding to safely glide around the laws without crossing their feet.
The slaves had a saying for their cunning in skirting the law.
Wheel about and turn about and jump just so. Every time I wheel about, I jump Jim Crow.
According to legend, T.D. Rice saw a crippled black man dancing an exaggerated Jim Crow dance. Rice took the man's tattered clothes and that night imitated him on stage.
It was an instant success, and America loved it, and a bevy of imitators came about. Literally hundreds of men tore up their clothes, discarded their perfect dialects of the black man, and began to do this exaggerated character dance, which became known as the Jim Crow character. And so here we have Jim Crow, T.D. Rice, taking a dance which was altered by a law from a man who was crippled and exaggerating it again. And he had no intention of presenting truth. But what was bought by the majority of people in Ohio and in the Louisiana Territory and along the Erie Canal was that this was a true image. And it was a devastating image. People in small towns who had never seen blacks, and suddenly saw Rice, bought that as a black image.
In 1843, a group of blackface performers joined together to form a single troupe. Instead of delineators, they called themselves minstrels. The minstrel show captivated broad audiences, mostly in the North, and emerged as America's first form of national popular entertainment. Like movies today, successful minstrels played to the tastes and values of their audiences. Jim Crow, reflecting popular demand, evolved into the singing, dancing Sambo. This light-hearted figure became one of the most potent forces in the politics of slavery.
The minstrelry era really took off at the same time that the abolitionist movement took off. As there were people working to end slavery, people working to eradicate slavery, there were also people increasing the exaggerated portrayals that we find in the minstrel materials.
Minstrel caricatures mirrored the prevailing belief that slavery was good for the slave, since it drew upon his natural inferiority and willingness to serve. Slaves were content. The proof was offered in the image of the happy Sambo.
The old plantation was presented as a kind of paradise. Well, white Americans were being constantly bombarded with the image of happy slaves, is what it amounted to. So slavery must be a good institution if the slaves were happy and the masters were kindly. And so that whole cultural image of a benign or beneficent institution was projected constantly in the period immediately before the Civil War.
So blessed with moderate work, with ample fare, with all the good the starving pauper needs, the happier slave on each plantation leads.
I am quite sure they never could become a happier people than I find them here. No tribe of people have ever passed from barbarism to civilization whose progress has been more secure from harm, more genial to their character, or better adapted to their intellectual feebleness than the Negroes.
Oh, hand the banjo down to play.
We'll make it ring both night and day.
If we care not what the white folks say, they can't get us to run away.
Time and again, these sentiments were expressed in the popular songs and novels before the Civil War. For many Americans, North and South, the myth of Sambo resolved both the moral and political conflict of allowing slavery in a free society.
On the one hand, whites like to think of their blacks as Sambos in the antebellum period, but they could never have operated plantations with Sambos, and they knew that.
The slavery debate grew more heated as the Civil War approached. Minstrels, playing to conservative sentiment, turned their attention to free blacks in the North, and a new character appeared beside the Southern Sambo, Zip Coon.
Transcendentalism is that spiritual cognizance of the psychological irrefutability.
A dandy and a buffoon, Zip Coon's attempts to imitate whites mocked the notion of racial equality. Together, Zip Coon and Sambo provided a double-edged defense of slavery. Zip Coon, proof of blacks' ludicrous failure to adapt to freedom, and Sambo, the fantasy of happy darkies in their proper place. When Al Jolson made his film debut in The Jazz Singer, Hollywood had emerged as the dominant force in popular entertainment. By 1927, more than 26 million Americans were going to the movies each week. What they saw reaffirmed the tradition of blackface entertainment that had prevailed since slavery.
Mammy, I'm coming. Oh, God, I hope I'm not late. Mammy, don't you know me? It's a little baby. I walk a million miles for one of your smiles. But my
From the 20s through World War II, blackface permeated motion pictures.
How do you think that the press has affected the black situation in this country?
I think news media and media in general are very negative in terms of any revolutionary movement or any movement that, forces the change of the status quo. Now, media has always been an enemy of black people because what media has done is media has always singled out people who had vanguard positions or vanguard attitudes and tried to make these people an enemy of the masses of people. In our case, make individuals enemies of black people. Malcolm X would be a good example. More Negroes feared Malcolm X than white people because news media told black people that Malcolm was bad. Muhammad Ali, the reason that Muhammad Ali could be given the maximum sentence and the maximum fine and the black community did not revolt was because Muhammad Ali had been made an enemy of black people. Adam Clayton Powell could be legally lynched, politically lynched, and black people did not revolt was because the man had told black people that Adam Clayton Powell was an uppity nigger. He had legitimatized his own action through news media. So the news media is a tool of oppression.
What about your personal experience with the press? Do you feel that the press has given you a fair shake?
You see, in terms of myself as an individual, whether I get coverage or not, doesn't make any difference. But in terms of ideas, in terms of the flux of ideas, or the flow of ideas,
right,
I see that the press has deliberately created a vacuum in terms of deliverance of attitudes or positions to the black community, which is to be expected. We cannot rely upon white news media to convey black revolutionary messages. So, the press is doing their job. And to me, what happened to me last year with the press was that there was a boycott against me. ABC, NBC, and CBS. Anything that Rap Brown did, you blacked out. Because, just like that, no question about it. And this was the whole attitude that has been assumed by news media. And black people do not control news media, so they cannot expect to turn on TV and find out what's going on in the black community. Just like, for example, the New York Times, one of the biggest pieces of white nationalism that exists in the country.
You have been quoted in the media, and you have been given some exposure. I think what you're saying is that the quality of that exposure leaves something to be desired? Or do you feel that you were totally excluded?
It's not an exclusion of individuals. It's an exclusion of positions, of vanguard positions, which again, I say, news media being what it is and serving who it serves is to be expected of news media. I think, black people, the total community of black people are for revolutionary change.
Okay, so that's roughly 11%.
And any group, any oppressed group, who wants to better their situation, out of necessity, has to be for revolutionary change because the system is incapable of changing itself.